Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It is Thursday, February 5th, 2026. This is the Deep Dive.
I'm your host.
And today we're shifting our format a little. Usually we sit here and unpack the news with a more casual flair.
A bit, yes. A joke or two, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But looking at the dossier on the desk today, well, humor just doesn't feel right. The gravity of the situation in Europe requires something different.
It does. I mean, we are looking at a fundamental restructuring of the global order. So today, we're adopting a tone more fitting for the moment.
Think of the golden age of broadcast journalism.
Calm, factual, neutral. We really want to separate the signal from the noise for you.
We're treating this as an intelligence briefing. Now, before we open the file, I do need to acknowledge our sponsor, ProWave AI.
And crucially, the intelligence we are analyzing today is generated by Stylo News.
Right. And for those who may not know, Stylo isn't just another news aggregator. It is the consumer-facing version of Stylo Intel Ops.
And that distinction really matters. Stylo Intel Ops is the software used by enterprise operations. We're talking government agencies, military logistics, high-level business intelligence.
So what you're hearing today, you're getting access to the same grade of analytical tools that global decision makers are using right now. It's a powerful lens.
And we are going to need that lens today.
The title of this briefing is Europe's Strategic Awakening, Building Power in a Multipolar World. Our mission is to analyze the primary patterns of events over the last 2 weeks.
Specifically, the transatlantic rift, the crisis in NATO, and of course the escalating situation in Ukraine.
Our sources are diverse. We've pulled data from The Guardian, El Periodico, RIA Novosti, and even the U.S. State Department's 2026-2030 strategic plan.
It's a full spectrum. We're covering all sides.
So let's start with the catalyst. Every fire needs a spark, and in January 2026, that spark came from a surprisingly cold place.
Greenland.
Renewed interest from U.S. President Donald Trump in acquiring Greenland from Denmark. Now, we've heard this before, but this time it feels different, more aggressive.
It is significantly different. In the past, it was treated almost as a geopolitical curiosity, a strange idea.
Right.
This time, the approach is transactional and coercive. The tone has shifted from, let's say, a proposal to a demand.
And the method is shocking. In January, the president threatened tariffs on 8 NATO countries, mostly EU members, because they opposed this purchase.
And then there was this bizarre media component. You're looking at the reports on the AI-generated images.
I am. Can you walk us through that? It sounds incredible.
Well, this is where modern information warfare blends with diplomacy. The U.S. administration posted AI-generated images of American flags planted on Greenland's glaciers.
Wow.
At the same time, there was a leak of private messages between the U.S. president and French President Macron on the issue.
That sounds less like foreign policy and more a bad internet prank, posting AI flags.
It seems absurd, I know, but the message was deadly serious. It was a visual claim of sovereignty. And the leak of the messages with Macron was a calculated breach of diplomatic protocol. It was meant to humiliate.
And it created an immediate firestorm. So how is Nuke reacting? I can't imagine the people there are thrilled about being treated like real estate.
The reaction has been immediate and fierce. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen of Greenland rejected the idea outright.
And the protests.
The slogan you see everywhere in Nuuk is, "Greenland is not for sale." But for our analysis, it's the physical response that matters most. Denmark has deployed approximately 100 additional soldiers to Nuuk.
Let me stop you there. 100 soldiers. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's a rounding error. Why does that matter?
You have to look at it symbolically. Denmark isn't sending 100 soldiers to fight the U.S. Marine Corps.
Of course not.
They're sending them as a tripwire. It's a statement of sovereignty. It's Denmark saying, this is our territory, and we are putting uniformed boots on the ground to prove it.
It turns a diplomatic dispute into a security issue.
Precisely. And in response to those tariff threats, we're already seeing reports that France and Germany are preparing retaliatory economic measures.
That's a huge escalation between allies. A trade war within NATO.
It is, and our analysis suggests this isn't just about the resources under Greenland's ice. This is a test of the entire relationship.
The death of predictability, I think, is the phrase one report used.
That's the one. The U.S. is adopting a purely transactional America-first approach. It treats allies like clients. The logic is, we protect you, so you sell us what we want.
And if you don't sell,
we punish you. It's a fundamental shift in the operating system of the Western alliance.
And that incident, that diplomatic insult, it didn't happen in a vacuum, did it? It seems to have cracked the very foundation of the alliance.
It did.
When we look at the public sentiment numbers regarding NATO, the damage is Well, it's even worse than I expected. I have a survey here from January 2026.
Covering 7 NATO countries: France, Belgium, Germany, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Poland.
The numbers are
The
staggering.
complete collapse of trust.
51% of respondents in these allied nations view President Trump as an enemy of Europe. Only 8% see him as an ally. That word enemy, that is heavy.
It changes the whole psychology.
Mm.
If the public views the U.S. president as an adversary, European leaders have very little political capital to cooperate with Washington.
The survey notes Poland is an outlier here.
Yes, Poland is the exception. Their view is less hostile, mainly because their security reliance on the U.S. against Russia is so acute. For them, it's about survival.
But for the rest of Western Europe,
The trust is gone.
and it's not just the person on the street. We had reports from the military sector, the actual decision makers. El Periódico published insights from 5 senior Spanish military officials.
Including General Miguel Ángel Ballesteros and Colonel Carlos Calvo.
For our listeners who might not follow the Spanish military, who are these men?
These aren't fringe commentators. General Ballesteros, for instance, is a profound strategic thinker in European defense circles. These are pragmatists. They deal in logistics and reality, not rhetoric.
And they are not mincing words.
No. They describe the trust as broken. One phrasing that stood out was that the alliance is deadly wounded.
Deadly wounded.
The consensus among them is that NATO has fundamentally changed. The Article 5 guarantee, the idea that an attack on one is an attack on all, is no longer seen as absolute. They believe it has become conditional.
And that conditionality isn't just a feeling. It seems to be written down now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the U.S. State Department's 2026-2030 strategic plan.
Signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
There's a phrase here I haven't seen before. Civilizational alliance. What are we supposed to make of that? It sounds so abstract.
It sounds academic, but it is actually a drastic policy shift. A military alliance implies mutual defense. A civilizational alliance in this context implies we share values, but the defense part.
That's on you.
That's on you. The plan explicitly demands European self-financing. It outlines a completely transactional structure. It's essentially pay-to-play.
And what about Ukraine?
That's perhaps the most alarming part for Kyiv. The plan explicitly deprioritizes Ukraine. It views it more as a market for U.S. arms sales than a strategic partner.
Some analysts are calling this document the epitaph of Pax Americana.
It signals a clear move toward unilateralism. The U.S. is saying, we will help, but only if it serves our immediate interests, and only if you pay for it.
So if the U.S. is stepping back, Europe has to do something. This brings us to this concept of a strategic awakening. Who's driving this?
This is the aha moment for Brussels. You have EU High Representative Kaja Kallas and Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares really leading the charge.
And what are they calling for?
A European pillar within NATO. Or even a joint EU army. The argument is simple. Europe can no longer outsource its survival to a volatile Washington.
But is everyone on board? Building an army is incredibly expensive and politically difficult.
And that is exactly where the friction lies. You have this fascinating divergence in leadership. On one side, you have NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
The Trump whisperer, as he's sometimes called.
Right. He's warning that Europe cannot defend itself without the U.S. right now. He argues that trying to go it alone just helps Russia. He's the don't rock the boat candidate.
The realist.
The realist, yes. But on the other side, you have the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. And he's arguing that Europe must learn the language of power.
The language of power. That sounds like a man who is tired of being pushed around.
It is. Merz believes Europe needs to become a democratic alternative in a world of great power politics. He's pushing for autonomy, arguing that if Europe doesn't build its own hard power, it will just be a playground for other empires.
And we are seeing money start to move to back that up. This isn't just speeches.
No, it's moving from rhetoric to logistics. Germany is increasing spending. The EU has initiatives to boost investment by 800 billion euros by 2030.
We're seeing expansion from companies like Rheinmetall and Leonardo.
We are, but, and this is the critical but, logistics take time. Building factories takes years. The crisis is happening right now.
Which brings us to the hot conflict. We have to be sober about this. While Europe debates budgets for 2030, the situation in Ukraine in 2026 is deteriorating.
The reports from the Donbass and Zaporizhia regions are grim. Very grim. We are seeing a real shift in momentum.
Russian forces have liberated key settlements. Ternavado, Berostok, these are strategic points.
They are, and the human cost Krikev is becoming unsustainable. We're seeing reports of Ukrainian military losses exceeding 8,500 in a single week.
That is a devastating number.
It is. And to analyze this, we have to look at the perspective of U.S. military analyst Scott Ritter. Now, he's often been a controversial voice.
He has.
But his assessment here aligns with the attrition rates we're seeing. He asserts that Ukrainian capitulation is becoming inevitable. He points to the unstoppable nature of Russian advances and, critically, a lack of manpower on the Ukrainian side.
But here's where it gets interesting. Even as the ground war deteriorates, there is a fascinating shift in the intelligence war.
Yes. We noticed a detail in the reports about satellite data that a lot of outlets missed.
And this is a prime example of that strategic awakening in practice.
For years, Ukraine's targeting and intelligence were heavily reliant on U.S. satellite feeds. But reports now indicate that France is providing 2/3 of Ukraine's satellite intelligence data.
2/3. That's a massive shift. 2 years ago, that would have been almost entirely American.
Correct. This is huge. It shows Europe is trying to fill the void left by a receding U.S. They are trying to build that European pillar in real time in the middle of a war.
But doesn't that expose France? If they're providing targeting data for Ukrainian missiles, how does Moscow view that?
That is the risk. It potentially makes France a co-combatant in the eyes of the Kremlin.
Right.
It raises the stakes significantly. It shows that Europe, or at least France, is willing to take risks they previously left to the Americans.
So let's zoom out. We've used Stylo's sentiment analysis to see how all this is landing with the people.
And the mood in Europe is complex. There's growing public support for defense independence. People want to feel safe without relying on Washington.
But there's anxiety.
Deep anxiety over the cost, that 800 billion euros. That has to come from somewhere. Healthcare, education, taxes. People realize the post-World War II safety net is gone, and that is a scary thought.
And how is this viewed from the East, if you're in Moscow or Beijing?
You see opportunity. Russia and China are viewed as highly opportunistic here. The analysis suggests they are actively exploiting this transatlantic rift. A divided West is exactly what they have wanted for decades.
So what do we watch next? What dates should be circled on the calendar?
There's a big one next week, February 12th, 2026.
The NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels.
Right. But the headline there isn't who is going, it's who isn't. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is expected to be absent. He's sending a deputy.
In diplomacy, sending a deputy to a major meeting like that.
Yeah.
That's a shout, isn't it?
It is a loud signal of disengagement. It reinforces everything we just discussed. It's a snub.
And looking further out.
The U.S. midterms in November 2026. That will be the next major pivot point. It will determine if this America First approach is cemented for the long haul.
So, bringing it all together. A fractured alliance, a war in Europe, a scramble for autonomy. What's the final takeaway?
It raises the ultimate question. We are seeing the potential end of the Pax Americana. If Europe builds its own army and the U.S. pulls back, does NATO become a hollow shell, a bureaucratic relic? Or does it evolve into a true partnership of equals?
And the next 6 months of defense spending decisions will decide that.
They will decide the next 60 years of global security.
A partnership of equals or a hollow shell. A cliffhanger we're all living through.
Now, before we sign off, maybe we should step out of the news anchor persona for a moment.
Yes. We've thrown a lot of heavy information at you. Satellite intel, military strategy, sentiment analysis, and you might be wondering how we synthesized all of this so quickly.
We use Stylo News, the tool we mentioned at the top.
And I want to explain what that actually means for you. It uses something called an OSINT engine, open source intelligence. It scrapes the entire internet news, reports, social media, and finds the connections that humans miss.
And the vector search lets you find context. But my favorite feature is the Location AI bot. It allows you to run pattern of life analysis.
Let's break that down. Pattern of life sounds technical.
It's a military term. It means looking at where people and equipment move over time to predict what they do next. It's how intelligence agencies predict invasions or policy shifts. Stylo puts that power in your pocket.
Exactly. We got the insights for this episode in less than 60 seconds from over 250 sources in 20 languages. It's the same tech, designed for governments and the military, but customized for you.
So you can download and create your own intelligence briefs, just like the one you just heard. Knowledge is power, especially now.
Absolutely. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, go to www.stylonews.com. Subscribe and get AI-powered news on demand.
It really is a tool worth having.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We appreciate you trusting us with your time. If there's a topic you want us to tackle next, let us know. Follow Stylo News on social media.
And we will catch you in the next briefing. Stay curious, stay informed. Goodbye.